You gaze at its cold gunmetal surface. The flashing lights blind your eyes, each one calculating equations at speeds no mere human could understand. You've never seen something like this. Its size and complexity makes your simple little clocks and compasses look like toys for toddlers. What you are staring at is a supercomputer. A colossal, intelligent, almost dystopian machine used for various purposes which no normal device could handle. While this one looks like a normal instrument of defense, only programmed to fight, always remember that you could never judge a book by its cover. So you might be thinking, what am I on? So let's explain, shall we? Now, first things first, we'll have to examine the Tempest Golem itself. The Tempest Golem is a colossal mechanical wonder, from its beautiful jade banners and fans to its shining gold swords and the bright glowing mohawk on its head. This machine was clearly designed with an artistic feel in mind. However, it's not just for show. This is the protector of the Gale Sanctum, a hidden temple found far above the peaks of the mountains. The golem can harness wind through lightning bolts, these, wind pillars? Yeah, wind pillars. It can call smaller machines, called squall golems, to its aid. Its swords can slice and dice through the toughest of armor, and as a final measure, if you get too close to the core of this beast, the shields will propel you away from it, revealing that they are not just for show. It seems like an amazing war machine. However, upon closer inspection, you can notice that the Tempest Golem has no legs. Rather, it's glued onto the ground. This raises a lot of questions. For example, why is it even glued there? I mean, someone could just fly away from the golem and just boom, that's it. Clearly, the heroes that face this machine have not achieved the luxuries of Elytras. No, they had to wait about 7 months to get their wings. And had to pay $7 for them. So what is the purpose? If this is the so-called protector of the Tempest Golem, why equip it with such a fatal flaw? I mean, if anyone wanted, they could have taken the treasure and just left the way they came. There has to be a much larger, more important reason for this machine to exist. And there is. Remember when I mentioned that the Tempest Golem can harness wind? Well, that leads on to my point. I don't think the Tempest Golem is just protecting Gale Sanctum. No, I think it's protecting itself. For it is vital to the Sanctum. The fact is, we know that the Golem can harness wind. It can activate squall golems at its will. It's almost like this thing has access to the Sanctum itself. And that's where we get to it. I believe the Tempest Golem is a supercomputer. I believe it's the heart of the Sanctum. First of all, notice the button on the Tempest Golem. It's basically the only way to properly damage the golem. You see, I think it's a power button, kind of like the power button on your computer or phone. And if it can harness the wind, it can definitely control the wind in the Sanctum itself. Ever notice how all those wind traps feel like they've just been set? Well, I believe they were set by the golem itself, as its AI thought it was the best outcome, just triggering the entire system. Another thing to note is that the narrator kind of states that the golem will kind of blow the world into smithereens. And once the golem is actually destroyed, the narrator suggests the wind is now free. Not under any control, as if the power source controlling it was deactivated. Now that begs the question, who even built the Tempest Golem. Well, first let's examine a crucial feature of the golem, the face. It looks like that of a villager, which is quite odd. We see a lot of villager architecture in places you wouldn't really expect it to be. So while you could say it was some ancient village tribe, possibly from legends, there is some other things that favor a different inventor, the Enderlings. Notice how many similarities there are to the End and the Sanctum. Both have similar methods of transportation, similar type of defense. Even the names are quite similar. A sanctum is a place of holiness or worship, and inside the citadel, bear in mind, citadel itself is basically a last line of defense for a city under attack. The area where we fight the Broken Heart of Ender is labeled as a shrine, another place of worship. So clearly, there is a huge similarity, but it's not just the architecture of the sanctum. Notice how the Squall Golem's hands are hook-shaped, similar to the hammer hands of the Endersent. If you think about it, those large hammer hands are much more powerful than just a hand. The hammer hand is just the ideal shape for a golem. Squall golems are just used for defense and defense only, so sacrificing hands for hammers seems way more logical. So on one side we can say the villagers constructed the golem, on the other we can say that the Enderlings constructed the golem. So who did? I think both. Who said collaborations were at the table? I believe that the Enderlings collabed with the villagers to construct the sanctum. But why, you may ask? Well, I believe that the sanctum was a monument, a physical representation of when two different species with two different cultures work together to make something that is greater as a whole than its two parts separately, like a gestalt. It's a celebration of art. The Enderlings are not inherently evil. They only follow the command of the Broken Heart of Ender, which in itself is kind of evil. While you might think the Heart of Ender / Orb of Dominance is basically pure evil and hates everything, that's not the case. Page 87 of the canon book, The Rise of the Arch-Elder. A wise notion, as befits one who is destined to rule. Your subjects will be fortunate to have you watching over them. A beam of light arced out from the orb and exposed a vein of metal running through the floor in front of Archie. Blocks of iron and gold rose up from the ground and hovered there before him. And a moment later, they began to spin around and around like a top. The blocks whirled about, becoming taller and narrower, until they melded into a tall, straight pole with a small disc on top. Perfect. The orb takes pride in its work. In the game files, the first form of the Broken Heart of Ender is labeled as the imperfect form, and the boss version is labeled as the perfect form. So I don't think that the orb has a distaste for art. The world of Minecraft itself is a canvas. You are one of many artists in it. You can paint your own work, help paint others, destroy other works, and so on and so forth. Now, why would the orb allow this? Well, possibly it wanted to do something with the villagers. Possibly weaponize them. Why? Well, that extends far beyond what this video is meant to be. Thank you so much for watching. Like any other theory, I recommend you not to take this seriously. This actually wasn't my first theory, as my first one was actually much bigger and in the works, so it won't come out in a while. I figured to start I would approach something a bit smaller and fun. Granted, we shifted from talking about computers to gods weaponizing people real fast, but it was fun. This is also meant to be a shorter theory compared to the other two, so I could just have a little bit of a simple start to this. And I'm going to be so honest, this was definitely the weakest of my three theories. And I didn't choose that on purpose. I just felt like this one was the shortest, so yeah. But don't worry, the next two are going to be amazing. Anyways, this took some time, so I would dearly appreciate your likes and subs. And if you have something to say about this theory, leave a comment down below. Goodbye.